So we're denying that White Forest is going to be a meta-relevant deck? Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more Oz content. Now, I've loved the fact that we have gone through so many opinions on the course of the game. As well, you got so many people out here that, you know, we've had all the blue eyes deniers out here. Now, we've reached the point that we've got people that are denying that White Forest is going to actually be a meta-relevant challenger out here. Now, I gotta say, for the most part of this, everybody, I'm surprised about this. I'm surprised that after all of the OCG data that we've had coming in out here and all the looking and all the analyzation of the White Forest meta post-Alliance Insight, that people are really calling for this deck to not actually be a relevant choice. And the only thing I got to say about this is why? What makes you think that White Forest is going to flop out here? Now, the only real thing that I can think of, you know, in my twists and turns and all of my, you know, thinking about this, that could possibly lead to a decision like this would be somebody out here had to take a look at every list in the OCG, and they had to go, oh my gosh, they're all playing Baron to floor. They had to take a look at them and go, oh my gosh, Baron is a relevant choice in this deck. Deck's going to be bad. It can't make Baron in the TCG. I don't know if you guys just looked at pre-Alliance Insight White Forest out here, which I'm so very sure that you had to have noticed, but there was builds popping up that weren't playing Baron to floor. Actually, it just topped a YCS, and it actually beautifully showcased what this deck is capable of doing. You know, being able to use the Black Goat Laughs and being able to use all those interruptions and all those actions. Yeah, that was a lot. That was a big thing to consider out here in terms of what this deck was capable of actually doing. But yet, you got people out here that are like, oh, that was a one-time thing. All right, that was a one-time thing. All right, we don't know how White Forest got past us out here, but we assure you, everybody, that there's no way that that deck is ever going to get by us again. And that's why we've reached this point. Now, in terms of how the market is taking the whole White Forest hype train, it's actually quite interesting, actually. Because White Forest cards, I mean, they've been on the rise. I'm actually getting the exact opposite feeling that I'm getting out here from the market. Like, sets on the market right now are floating at $120 for QCRs. And then a set Azaminas are floating at $95. They're gone down, you know, like $10, which is nothing bad. You know, Stellars, on the other hand, not really doing too crazy. Silveras, I mean, the Book of Moon is a lot of money still. You know, some of the Synchros have dropped $5-ish. Diabelle, the Queen of the White Forest, is on buyout status at like $54. So why is it that one half of the community is going, you know, White Forest isn't going to be a relevant deck here. The other half of the market, which is speaking with their wallets, and they're anticipating all of this hype, you know, they're spending all of this money out here to pick up these cards in advance. This is where, you know, people, the term put your money where your mouth is. People are willing to spend the money right now to not do this. And then the people that don't have very deep pockets, they're the ones that aren't rushing out here and picking up these cards. These are the people that are, you know, complaining about the meta. They're complaining about the stuff, you know, they're denying the fact that a deck is going to be good. And I don't understand this. You know, all of the tools that the White Forest deck has. So the fact you get a field spell that locks you out of being able to, you know, search or interact with dark monsters for like, what is it, like the rest of the turn, which forces you to actually set up your Omni Negate before you're doing anything. I understand that that to a few people. So actually, I don't understand this. So when the White Forest, you know, spell card, the good one, got, you know, announced, a lot of people are like, oh, this deck is dog shit, you know, it no longer allows you to use your Sinful Spoils, you know, stuff, you know, you want to be able to set up the Azamina stuff and go, but no, they ruined that. And it's like, no, they didn't. You're going to set up your Omni Negate, you're going to do all this stuff before you do the whole White Forest thing. All right, like, and I never understood that. I don't understand why people think that, like, oh, you know, like, we got to navigate and do... No, they want you to interact with that line first and then go down the other half of the combo. All right, that was always their intention for the way that they put the soft lock on the card. It's because they wanted you to play the deck that way, and that's the way it should be played in the first place. It also can be, viewed as like a silly little restriction that they're like, hey, yeah, you're doing this, respect the way that the lore of the deck is, and after you're doing this, our dear old little friend turned into a tree for a reason for the lore out here, and I'm sure, at the end of the White Forest that there's something, but is it because people don't understand? So I'd like to use my friend as an example out here. So I have a friend that just recently started playing White Forest, started play testing the combos like a madman. And the way that he phrases the deck is there's a lot of triggers that you need to know about. There's a lot of interaction that you have to be aware of. If you miss those trigger points, then the deck feels kind of, weird. And he said once you get down those niche interactions, the deck is, very good. Well, Robbie, don't you know how to play White Forest? Absolutely, I have no idea how to play White Forest. That deck is a mystery to me, but when the deck goes, its combo ceiling to me feels very high. And I think that's one, we talk a lot about people not understanding or how to play meta decks out here. Or, people just don't want to commit time to learn certain strategies because they're just dubbed, too complicated. And that's why, you'll see these strategies actually come out of the woodwork and actually do so extremely well sometimes. It's because people don't know how to handle them, or they're just straight unaware of how these interactions actually work. And that's all very fair. That's okay. We call those the surprise factor. They give you that chance to actually, conquer the meta and do something, which is actually really, really freaking cool, man. It's stuff like that we do need to have happening. You need cases like this to be existing in the course of the meta, and you need people to be stepping up and testing things like this. Out of the YCS pre-Alliance Insight, where, you got to see the real power of Black Goat Laughs and how stupid that interaction is, and just how much the meta doesn't respect Black Goat Laughs. If you actually get that set up, you're just going into, essentially such a game-winningly good position. It's kind of horrifying to think about out here. So I think that White Forest is going to do a lot better here than people are thinking. You've got to remember that pretty much every OCG tier list has had White Forest usually at an A tier slot, and that's pretty good, actually. Having a deck rate so high on a tier list is very, very important to think about out here. And if you're like, oh, this deck is not doing well, no, you're denying the chance of this just because you don't want to take time out here to actually learn the combos and understand the interactions that the meta is doing. That's bad. This is why we have these discussions out here to point out, hey, Black Goat Laughs, the 2 new Sinful Spoils boss monsters, really, really strong. They actually add so much consistency to the deck. Like, it's actually kind of crazy to see. And you're telling me out here that you don't respect or believe that these cards are going to perform. And that's why post-Alliance Insight, when these cards are starting to topple over and they're starting to do a lot better, you're going to have people going, oh shit, why is the market reacting like this? Why are these cards, skyrocketing like this? It's because people back here in February were going, no, this deck is bad. I don't believe in it. It's just not for me. And it's just not a real deck in that case. Come on, man. You're better than this. Half of this community knows when they're talking out their ass, but there's been a lot more talking out the ass lately than there really should be with this sort of stuff. And I don't get it. But I think results will talk a lot louder once things are established. So, do you think White Forest is going to live up to its hype, or do you think it's going to fade away? But we will have to wait and see. So please, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. And the White Forest will be coming for you this spring. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.